Hello pilot, welcome to episode 2 of the Lancer Solstice Reign campaign diary. Last episode, our pilots crashed down in the city of Nov Elysia, as the crew of the Rio Grande began an operation to rescue their missing captain. After surviving an immediate ambush, they receive orders to rendezvous to Forward Operating Base Sabre, which is a long walk away through a city-turned-battlefield. So as we jump back in, Team Effort is marching through the city streets as gunfire can be heard all around them. As I mentioned last episode, the Solstice Reign module is predominantly a list of battle encounters with not much stringing them together. Since I wanted to explore the narrative side of Lancer 2, I decided to add a skill challenge between these two combats. This is partially because I wanted to see how the narrative side of Lancer works in practice, but it was also a good chance to give our players some time to roleplay and explore their characters outside of just how they fight. By presenting them with a skill challenge, I was giving them the chance to explore how their character might react to different scenarios. I decided for this first skill challenge to have a small child run out from a building and into the path of the mechs begging for help. A nearby building was partially destroyed and leaning dangerously, and the young girl told the group that her parents were trapped inside. I broke the skill challenge into 3 stages. Step 1 was to find the trapped civilians. I had each pilot explain how they wanted to approach this situation, roll a dice, and apply any relevant triggers. Sawbones took charge of the situation, giving out tasks and making sure that people didn't trip over each other trying to accomplish the same thing. She added her stay cool trigger to this, keeping calm and making sure the rescue attempts were handled safely. She rolled a 21, earning the group their first success. Jackalope also tried to use the stay cool trigger, and he took charge of making sure the building didn't collapse, making use of his larger mech size. Unfortunately, he rolled a 7, giving the group their first failure. I held off describing how individual failures resolved, waiting to see if the challenge stage as a whole was successful, as that would definitely impact how those scenarios played out. Mother began searching inside the building, also trying to use Stay Cool to try and avoid any quick movements that would risk the building's safety. Sadly, she rolled a 9, meaning they now had 2 failures and only 1 success. Partisan tried to jury-rig a new support for the building, using his hack or fix trigger. He piled rubble into the edges of the broken structure, bolstering its supports. After rolling a 14, he earned the group its second success. Aramis began searching for people in the rubble of the building and applied the spot trigger. She rolled a 15, adding a 3rd success. So she located the 2 people partially buried in the rubble at the back of the building. Archangel tried to use his lead or inspire trigger by standing off to the side and preaching religious passages. However, on a roll of 3, a failure meant that we decided that his religious preachings were actually more of a distraction and what led to Jackalope and Mother losing their cool a little bit. That left us with 3 successes and 3 failures in stage 1. Technically, in the instance of a draw, you are supposed to flip a coin and randomly assign whether it was successful or not. However, even though I'm not sure if critical successes can happen during a skill challenge, I still decided to use Sawbones' roll of 21 to push this towards being a success. Something I really like, and I wasn't quite expecting this, is that this type of skill challenge kind of feels like a montage of character moments. By reducing the scene to 1 roll each and coming up with cool moments of success or funny reactions to failure, it feels like a snapshot of a character's personality. After only stage 1, we now have the headcanon that Archangel can't read the moment and chooses terrible times to spout religious fanaticism, and Mother, despite being an NHP, is susceptible to getting flustered. It's kind of cool. Stage 2 was to clear the rubble and get the people out. This time, Partisan went first, and he wanted to use his blow something up trigger. So, after previously bolstering the supports on one part of the building, he used small explosives to create an entry point nearer to the targets. And a natural 20 on the dice backed him up, making this a masterful display of controlled demolition. Aramis began carefully clearing the rubble, making sure to maintain the building's structure while opening the way for the people to be saved. She used the Stay Cool trigger, and a total of 21 on the dice meant that she earned another success. Sawbones moved into the building and reached the unconscious parents. She used the Read a Situation trigger to judge whether it was safe to pull the couple free. She rolled a 10 and that was a success. While the couple was trapped and unmoving beneath a pile of rubble, she saw no injuries that would make it dangerous to move them. Archangel had been left to look after the child while Sawbones went in, and continued to preach his religion. After a 15 on the roll, the child was quite concerningly quite enraptured by his culty teachings. But at least the child was distracted and kept safe from nearby dangers.
What is your religion, by the way? Is this some kind of like crazy cult shit?
Yeah.
Oh, great!
Cultures.
You're introducing a psycho cult to this planet. Of course you would do that.
Jackalip got out of his mech and began clearing the rubble on the parents. He used Stay Cool to ensure he was fast but careful. On a total of 20 on the dice, that meant another success. The dice were being very nice to our group this time. Lastly, Mother tried to use the read the situation trigger to make sure everything had gone smoothly. After rolling a 4, we said that everyone had already done everything her programming was telling her to do, so she kind of stalled out a little bit. But that was 5 successes versus 1 failure. Now that the party had successfully completed 2 of the 3 stages, the challenge was technically won, but we moved on to the final stage as we were enjoying the fun character quirks that these challenges created. The final stage was to treat the family and get them to safety. Sawbones wanted to use the patch trigger to treat the wounds of the family, but unfortunately she rolled a 5 and gained a failure. While the parents had no wounds that were immediately fatal, she wasn't able to help them gain consciousness. Mother began to search around for a safe place to put the family. She added her Assess the Situation trigger and rolled an 18. She found a nearby bank that was being used as a makeshift shelter and reasoned that the family could be handed off to the survivors and they would look after them. That was 1 success versus 1 failure. Aramis checked the unconscious parents over to ensure that neither of them had any unseen bleeding or hidden fatal wounds. She added her Spot trigger and rolled a 20, gaining another success. She noticed that the father had a small metal pipe stabbing into his leg. Nothing fatal, but she could determine that he should be the one to gain priority for medical care. Jackalip began to patrol the route to the safety of the bank, adding the Spot trigger to ensure they wouldn't be ambushed. He rolled a 21, gaining another success and successfully keeping a keen eye on the path. Partisan grabbed the family with his mech and began to parkour his way through the city, making stylish jumps and power sliding to the entrance of the bank. While this was very reckless and absolutely not the best way to transport wounded people, he wanted to add the show-off trigger and he did get a success. So the family were safely dropped off, and now we know that Partisan is highly irresponsible. Archangel decided to be the responsible one now and used the Act Unseen or Unheard trigger to cover their tracks and make sure they weren't followed, especially after that flashy display by Partisan. He rolled a 12, earning a success. That meant they had succeeded on all 3 stages and beaten the skill challenge. So, how do I feel about them in hindsight? Well, I do really enjoy the montaging of character moments. Rather than play out these moments in real time, we can summarize how a character behaves off a single roll and create quick but memorable moments. I do think the dice were very kind to the group and might have created a misconception about how easy they are. The characters actually have very little influence over their results. They can apply a trigger, and did so every time, which I suppose does reinforce their background as a meaningful choice, since they behave in a way that lets them always access a trigger. However, it only adds a +2 at this level, which leaves success almost entirely down to the dice. In fairness, leveling up does give them the chance to increase this bonus to a trigger, so eventually they could become very proficient at certain approaches to challenges. It's an interesting system, and I think I need to see it in progress through the levels to make a final call on it. On my end, while this was supposed to be a demonstration of the system to my players, I really should have given them a reward for success, whether that be reserves or even just lore or story information to help them in the next battle. I will definitely run more of these throughout the adventure though, so next time I'll be sure to add an incentive to success.
That felt good, right? Like, that's why we do this shit.
Exactly. Never saved a life in my life.
Honestly,
But
I'm
that was
normally
great.
taking them than helping.
Yeah, it feels good. It really does.
Good spot with the finding a safe place to take him, Mother. I wouldn't have seen that a mile off.
You did good work as well, though. Where do we head from here now? Was it still east?
I think
West
it
or
was still west.
Yep, we need to get to the FOB. Right quick.
Alright, so the adventure presents the next scene as either a skill challenge or a combat. Since I just ran a skill challenge of my own, and I was in no particular rush to get through this adventure, I decided to run it as a battle. The squad rounded a corner and suddenly were face to face with several soldiers and a broken down bus. As you are moving through this area, you turn a corner and you see a broken down bus that has stalled out, with several soldiers hastily attempting to repair the engine. As they see you come around the corner, all of them throw their tools down, throw their hands in the air, and put themselves between you guys and the bus. And you can see there are frightened passengers looking back at you guys through the windows and ducking down to get out of the way. There's cries of alarm going out. One of the soldiers takes a hasty step towards you. Whoa, don't shoot! Don't shoot, please! There are civilians on board!
Calm down. We're not shooting anyone. What's going on here?
They give you guys a look, and you'd see almost like a look of not recognition, but recognition of what you aren't. And you can tell from your briefing and these guys' uniforms that these are part of the LSA. They're not sovereign.
We're Union.
Oh, good. We need your help. We sent out as part of a larger convoy to escort the civilians to the defense shelters. We've been ambushed and cut off from the others. We're trying to make it to a nearby shelter on our own, but it's been slow going trying to get past all the fighting, and now the bus is broken down. We need help getting these people to safety.
Well, that's why we're here. Right, guys?
Yeah, sure. I mean, point us the direction. We'll help you along.
Seen any trouble along the way?
Yeah, there's a squad of sovereign forces just ahead. But we need the bus getting fixed. I don't suppose any of you know how to repair a bus.
Well, I might know a thing or two about repairs. If I can repair a mech, I can probably repair a bus.
A thing or two. You guys have really hit it lucky. This here's the best mechanic I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I mean, not to brag or anything, but you're right.
They look at each other quite hopefully. Oh, great. Would you mind giving it a look?
Sure. I can give it a look-see.
Partisan exited his mech and set to work on fixing the bus. Aramis and Archangel were both a little suspicious that this might be a trap, so as Partisan began repairs, they took to the roofs and began scouting the area. Their intent was to make sure that this wasn't an ambush, but after they both rolled insanely well on the spot checks, at 21 and a natural 20, I decided to go ahead and give them a full pre-battle rundown of the sovereign forces they'd be facing in the next battle. I didn't mention what the reinforcements would be, of course, but I told them about the mechs currently deployed, giving them vague descriptions that might tip them off as to what they can do. I wouldn't make a habit of this, but I wanted to reward them for rolling so damn well. Back at the bus, Partisan made a hack or a fixed trigger roll with an 18, repairing the bus pretty quickly. He made sure to explain to the soldiers what he was doing, passing down his years of wisdom to these young men and women. As the bus hummed back to life, the civilians on board cheered and the soldiers were very thankful. About this time, Aramis and Archangel returned.
Well, looks like they got a roadblock set up for us. Definitely got a sniper, a couple of other guys set up.
Right.
Yeah.
How about the route? Is there any way to bypass them?
Not that I saw.
Well, looks like they're creating the pathway for travel, essentially. One of them was dropping down barricades. So probably just gonna have to smash through.
The soldiers look actively nervous at this. One of them, the one who sort of yelled out before, approaches you guys. Will you be able to help us get through? We need to get to the other side of them. That's where we'll be getting to the safe point.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't go around him, we have to go through him, right?
Yep. No other choice. Aramis, you, me, point man on this?
Yeah, sounds good, mate.
All right. Guess we'll form up and guide our people through.
And so began Combat 2. Look both ways. This is an escort sitrep, meaning the bus will follow along behind our pilots as they try and move from the deployment zone on the left to the extraction zone on the right. They have a total of 8 rounds to complete this by. Failure to do so will result in them being forced to abandon the bus as they retreat. This combat also had the fun quirk of there being multiple burning buildings that will explode when shot. This can prove quite dangerous, so required some tactical thinking to path around. The party actually came up with a pretty in-depth plan for this combat. It involved Jackalope shuffling forward and the rest of the party using him as cover and stationing themselves along the route to eventually slingshot the bus the entire way. They pre-planned the route to keep the bus away from the enemies. It was all rather involved. However, while the usual saying is no plan survives contact with the enemy, for my group, the saying should probably be no plan survives contact with themselves. Let's get right into the fight. Things started well as Jackalope activated and moved towards the enemy. He fired his mortar deep into the enemy deployment zone, hitting the barricade, archer, and priest. Only the barricade took damage though. Lastly, he deployed a turret drone. Since turret drones are half size, it'll only get use if the enemy leaves the safety of their walled-off deployment zone. The Sovereign Priest activated and used its dispersal shield to give the nearby assault resistance to damage and heat from the next 1d3 attacks. This ended up being the next 1 attack. However, because it has Empower Shield 2, it gave the assault a 5 overshield. It then used its investiture on the assault 2. This gives the assault an accuracy on all attacks and lets it use the priest's systems score. In the previous battle, the priest didn't get the chance to be very useful, so I wanted to get a value out of it early on. Mother followed up behind Jackalope and wanted to scan the barricade. Thanks to her data siphon ability, she can get a free scan whenever she makes a tech attack. We got some very helpful feedback regarding the difference between quick techs and specifically tech attacks, so we now know that things like lock-on don't need to roll. That's great, thank you so much for letting us know. Unfortunately, the first 2 rounds of this fight were recorded before we got that information, so bear with us while we mess up just a little bit more. Mother used a tech attack on the archer but failed, but she did get the free scan. She then successfully invaded and scanned the barricade, impairing and slowing it. The enemy engineer activated and deployed a drone. It then gained line of sight on Jackalope and hit him with a flak cannon, and then moved back into hardcover. And then the plan was abandoned. Archangel activated his core system hyperspec fuel injector. This gives him an accuracy on basically everything, and lets him boost for free every turn. I think the excitement got him a little bit giddy as he took off with the bus, moving, boosting, and free action boosting to rush the bus about a third of the total distance. He did take a moment to fire at the archer as he passed, but only dealt reliable damage. The others questioned what happened to dropping the bus off with Jackalope to slow roll it forward, but Archangel figured that if he could do that every round, they could win really quickly. Unfortunately, they hadn't seen what the barricade can do yet. The barricade strode over the wall and hacked Archangel with a drag-down hack. This deals 2 armor-piercing energy damage per hex that they voluntarily move through. Then it fired a gravitational lance at him, but missed. I really wanted to keep the bus where it was until the barricade got the chance to build a blockade. Sawbones hurried forward and mortared the priest and assault, but only the priest took damage. The assault returned fire now that Sawbones was out of position, dealing 6 points of damage, over half her maximum hit points. Partisan began heading along the northern edge. He settled into hardcover using the burning lorry to block line of sight. This was not a great plan though. The archer shot the burning lorry, blowing it up and damaging Partisan. He did roll a natural 20 on his agility save, so he only took half damage. It then used Suppress on Archangel, adding another reason Archangel really doesn't want to move with that bus. Aramis moved and boosted to take up hardcover behind Jackalope, and then she bolstered him. The Cedar was the final mech to act, and it fired at Archangel with its anti-grav launcher, but the attack missed. It then deployed a mine on the northern road. It also took cover behind some size 2 terrain. By the end of the first round, the bus had moved pretty far up. However, by rushing ahead like that, Archangel, a mech built to snipe, had now been bombarded with debuffs and was in a very vulnerable spot. For most of the enemy mechs, he was the only one in range to attack. The problem with speeding really far ahead is that your ally mechs that aren't as fast just can't make themselves useful as the fight develops around you. It also means the bus is not safe and can easily become contested. The northern road has become increasingly protected, and with the bus's current position, it'll be difficult to pivot away from that path. Compared to the previous battle, our heroes have spread out their attacks and have already damaged several mechs, even if nothing is close to dying yet. For reinforcements, I deployed a Cataphract and a Sentinel. Archangel kicked off this round knowing he couldn't move anyway. He used his steady aim protocol and barraged, beginning with an anti-material rifle shot at the barricade, which missed. His second attack was an assault rifle shot, and this did hit, but the damage was so low, it ended up using the reliable damage anyway. I was eager to start blocking off this northern route, so the barricade activated and used its mobile printer protocol to partially block the road with a size 2 chunk of terrain. This being a protocol means that it has to do it at the start of the turn, which is why it needs to already be in position for it. It then managed to reapply the drag down on Archangel and missed another Graviton Lance attack. Mother cautiously moved forwards and successfully hacked the barricade with a balance control lockout hack. She sent it skidding along the ground onto the mine. She was hoping this would trigger the mine, but sadly that is not how the Cedar mines work. Still, getting him out of the way was a good idea, and since it had already activated, it was now stuck prone for a long time as her allies went. She then hacked him again, this time with her System Crusher to apply 4 heat instead of the usual 2. The archer saw how dangerous Mother could potentially be, so it opened fire on her and hit. It then applied Hail of Fire to her, immobilizing and impairing her. Partisan zoomed across the map using his movement, a boost, and his once-per-scene initiative to reach the barricade and sink an axe into it. The barricade does have kinetic resistance, so the damage was halved, but it was still a good hit. The newly arrived Cataphract is extremely quick with a speed of 8. It reached Partisan with only movement and a boost, and then instead of attacking Partisan, I wanted to get Archangel off the bus. It tried to use its electrified lasso on him, but Archangel succeeded the save. Jackalope hurried to catch up with the bust, so boosted and moved. He then mortared the archer and the priest, only damaging the priest. The engineer activated, and thanks to mobile turrets, its deployed turrets can move a short distance. The wording on how these turrets work is a little unclear to me. It's a quick action to deploy one, but as part of that same ability, it says, on the engineer's turn, deployed turrets attack the nearest hostile character within a range 10. It isn't clear when that happens specifically, or if there's a cost. At first, such as in this round, I had the turrets fire at the start of the turn after moving. But on later rounds, I decided to group it all into a single deploy quick action, so placed a new one, and then fired the existing ones as part of that quick action. I'm still not sure which way is correct, so if you do know, let me know in the comments. The turret shot at Jackalope, dealing 3 damage after armor. It then deployed a new turret, and it hit Partisan with a flak cannon. Sawbones fired a mortar at the priest and archer, but missed both of them. She then fired her assault rifle at the assault and hit despite the hardcover. She then moved into some hardcover of her own. The Cedar fired an arching grav grenade at Archangel and Jackalope, only hitting Jackalope. It then shuffled along and deployed another mine along the road. Aramis took flight and flew back behind Jackalope for the cost of 2 heat. She then tried to attack the priest, but it was in hardcover, and her Hunter-Killer Nexus missed. The Sentinel is very good at overwatching, so I wanted it to watch the road. It moved and boosted, and then shot Partisan with his shotgun. Luckily for him, the attack missed. I had a few Sovereign mechs left to finish up, so the assault moved up to see Jackalope and hit him with its heavy assault rifle. The priest moved behind the size 2 terrain and used a full tech attack on Partisan, missing the first and hitting the second. It applied Abjure to Partisan, meaning that he takes heat when he attacks. After round 2, the bus has not moved. Moving it so deep and then getting essentially locked in place had caused the team to lose momentum. Partisan was deep in enemy territory and the target of a lot of mechs. He was in a very dangerous spot. There were still no defeated mechs, but there was a good spread of damage across them. The northern road now seemed like an impossibility for getting the bus through, so they had to think on their feet. The group realised that since the barricades around the enemy zone were only size 1, Jackalope could in theory take the bus through the middle. This would be a dangerous plan, but much more achievable than clearing the top road of all its dangers. And I chose not to deploy any new reinforcements until some kills had happened. Kicking off round 3, Sawbones fired a well-placed mortar that hit the priest, assault, and archer. The priest avoided the damage, but the other 2 were hit. This was the first hit on the assault, so it removed the dispersal shield. Since the overshield was also provided as part of this dispersal shield, I ruled that the remaining overshield disappeared when the effect ended. That might be incorrect though, let me know how you would run that. Sawbones then shot the archer, dealing maximum damage. The archer was pretty low health, and I didn't see it living very long, so I activated that and shot at Jackalope, since he was low hit points, and now in charge of the bus. It missed and then suppressed him, hoping to dissuade him from moving forward. Jackalope began by shooting the archer with his assault rifle, theorizing that even if he missed, the reliable would be damaged and cancel the suppressed. As it happens, he hit and killed the archer, the first kill of the fight. He then moved and boosted through the difficult terrain and tried to ram the assault, but sadly failed. The cataphract moved away from Partisan and lined itself up to impale Archangel. I wanted to drag him away from the fight, but a successful hull save meant that Archangel avoided the attack. Mother invaded the already heavily debuffed barricade with a System Crusher, pushing him past his heat cap and making it exposed and burn. She shouldn't technically have been allowed to use that, since System Crusher is only once per scene per character, and she'd already used this on the barricade. However, we had taken a 2-week break between rounds, so everybody had forgotten about that. Oops. The burn made it immediately take 4 damage, and then she gave it a lock-on too. The Cedar launched a Grav Spike at Partisan, which connected. It then also fired a Grav Grenade at him, which hit. Archangel activated Steady Aim and fired at the barricade with a reliable assault rifle. This was a guaranteed kill, but the fact that he crit did not hurt. He then threw a grenade which killed the priest and damaged the assault. A very good round for Archangel. The Sentinel activated Eye of Midnight, letting it overwatch every turn instead of once a round. It then shot Partisan with its shotgun, breaking a structure, but the custom paint job saved him, and Partisan remained at 1 hit point instead. Partisan stabilized to heal himself up since it was the perfect time to do so. He then dived past the wall, avoiding a shotgun blast from the Sentinel, and engaged the assault. The Engineer activated and its turrets flooded towards our heroes. It deployed a new turret and fired the existing ones, which aimed for Sawbones and Jackalope, but both missed. It then moved out of cover and fired its flak cannon at Aramis, and this did hit. Aramis activated her projected shield to create a barrier between her and the Engineer. She then tried to shoot the cataphract with her shotgun. While this did miss, she was able to apply her Exemplar's mark to it, meaning her allies could reroll missed attacks against it. She also scanned him. The assault barraged Jackalope using a heavy assault rifle and a combat knife. Both hit, and while he did brace, the special heroism version, which means he doesn't lose actions, he did still lose a structure of this. Well, he would have done if his custom paint job hasn't also procced, leaving him at 1 hit point too. What are the chances? That was the end of round 3. The bus had begun moving again, though arguably a much more dangerous route, but this new path is giving the team something to focus on, and they've done a good job clearing the way. 3 enemy mechs are dead, including the highly problematic barricade. Getting through the middle like this will be challenging, but it will also make the enemy mechs scramble to deal with them quickly. It might actually be a great approach now. For reinforcements, I added a second cataphract and an assault grunt. Partisan kicked off this round by trying to take out the assault, blocking Jackalope and the bus. He barraged the assault, which hunkered down against the first attack to gain resistance. This left it open to the second attack, which ended up dealing more damage anyway. Since it was left on 2 hit points, he overcharged, taking 3 damage and killing the assault. The way forward was clear. Partisan then moved to engage the Cedar. Since the Cedar was the only thing in position to hinder Jackalope and the bus, I activated that next. It began by triggering its Grav Spike protocol, damaging Partisan and throwing him out of engagement range. It then deployed a sealant mine right in front of Jackalope, hoping to block off this route, and it then hit him with a Grav Grenade, breaking a structure and causing Jackalope to lose his Jericho deployable cover. Jackalope wanted to disarm this mine. That meant first finding it with a systems check. He was unsuccessful, so threw caution to the wind and charged over it. Stepping on the mine triggered it, and Jackalope had to make a hull save. This time he was successful, managing to force his way through the sudden explosion of sealant foam. Seeing the top path would technically cause the bus to become contested, he realized that he needed to divert to the bottom path. An overcharge let them boost even further. The bus was now 1 good turn away from reaching the extraction zone, so the Sovereign forces needed to pull out all the stops. The newly arrived cataphract charged towards the bus, using its speed and a boost to get nearby. It then tried and failed to use its electrified lasso to pull Jackalope away from the bus. Sawbones shot at the nearby turret and destroyed it. She then moved towards the extract and mortared the cataphract, although this did miss. The Sentinel used a quick action to exit its Eye of Midnight mode and then moved and boosted, trying to get within range to help take the bus. Archangel went next, trying to make use of Aramis's Exemplar mark before it fell off. First, he stabilized in order to reload, and then he overcharged to shoot the Cataphract with his anti-material rifle. This hit for 8 damage, and Jackalope used his reaction to add the turret drone damage to that. The Cataphract was pretty damaged, but still active. Archangel then sped towards the extract. The Cataphract moved through Mother. It used Trample to move through her space and damage her, and as it rushed away, Aramis hit it with her shotgun as an overwatch, leaving it sadly on 1 hit point. It then successfully used its electrified lasso on Mother, dragging her nearly all the way back to the deployment zone and grappling her. It then stabbed her with its ram cannon. This would have reduced her structure, but another custom paint job triggered, leaving her on 1 hit point. So damn lucky. Mother returned fire, destroying the Cataphract with her thermal rifle, and then she moved and boosted to catch up with her allies. The assault grunt hurried towards the combat, using its movement and a boost, but not being able to do anything else. Aramis began rushing towards the extraction zone, moving and boosting. She then fired her Nexus Hunter-Killer at the Cedar, but missed. Lastly, the engineer moved its drones and deployed a new drone. All the drones fired at Sawbones, but only 1 hit. This was enough to cause structure damage and resulted in a direct hit that stunned her. Since she was now such an easy target, the engineer finished its turn by blasting her with its flak cannon, which somehow missed. That was the end of round 4. The bus is now, in theory, within escaping range, but a lot of the party were not. Much like Archangel rushing ahead at the start of the fight, Jackalope had taken it forward alone now as well, and that made him target number 1 for our Sovereign forces. He was very much surrounded, with not many ways to move forward without making it contested. The party had killed a fair chunk of enemy mechs, so success seemed likely, especially since they'd only just passed the halfway point of the time limit. For reinforcements, I added 2 Ronin grunts. Rather than get the bus straight out, the party wanted to try and deal with some of the enemies surrounding Jackalope. He moved towards the difficult terrain and then shot at the assault with a reliable assault rifle, killing it. He then boosted through the difficult terrain, not quite being able to reach the extraction zone. An overcharge here would have been a 1d6 roll, and that had a high chance of dealing stress damage. The Cataphract really wanted to get Jackalope away from the bus, so it lined up an impale and charged. Jackalope proved too heavy though, and a successful hull save meant that he did not move. I could have stopped their progress by simply making it touch the bus, but I risked it all on the hopes that the Sentinel could have had the chance to then run away with the bus. Unfortunate for the Sovereign forces. Partisan rushed the Sentinel, leaping on top of the wall. It did shoot him with its shotgun, blasting him for 6 damage, but a successful hull save meant that the Impaler didn't trigger, so this attack didn't stop him, and Partisan crit the Sentinel in return. The Cedar moved and boosted to get Jackalope in line of sight, and then hit him with a grav grenade. The damage was nice, but what I really wanted was that knockback. This pushed Jackalope off the bus, finally leaving it available to be yoinked. Archangel moved and free boosted into engagement with the Sentinel. He then barraged with an assault rifle and a tactical knife thermal pistol flex mount. This left the Sentinel on 4 hit points, so he overcharged to attack again with the assault rifle, bringing it down to 2 hit points. The Sentinel went next, and while I really wanted it to go for the bus, taking 2 Overwatch attacks felt way too risky, so it barraged, attacking Partisan with its retractable sword and Archangel with its shotgun. This broke structure on Partisan, leaving him stunned by a direct hit, and damaged Archangel. Aramis took to the skies, taking a bit of heat to fly up on top of one of the size 2 walls, and then fired her Hunter-Killer Nexus at the Sentinel, destroying it. She then boosted down to the ground level. The Engineer activated, moving some of its turrets towards the main combat, but leaving one behind to bully the stunned Sawbones. It moved towards the bus itself, and then deployed and fired its drones, damaging Sawbones. Mother began rushing to catch up, moving and boosting. She hacked the Cedar, slowing and impairing it, and as part of this scanned it. A little late in the fight for this, but still useful if they face one again. One of the Ronin grunts hurried towards the bus, but after moving and boosting, it just couldn't reach the bus, so it just locked onto Jackalope. Sawbones cleared her stun. The other Ronin grunt chased along as well. And that was it for round 5. The party were in a really good spot to win now. Since the party could go first, it meant that Jackalope could, in theory, just grab the bus, walk out, and extract. And that is exactly what happened. Jackalope walked back to the bus, and since no enemy mechs had managed to reach it, it wasn't contested, so he walked it right out and extracted. And that was a victory for our heroes. The remaining Sovereign forces retreated, cutting their losses. Since we were already 20 minutes past our usual finish time, we ended the session immediately there, saving the after-battle RP, the rewards, and the resting for next time. So, as much as I would love to talk about the after-battle cooldown, I didn't want to wait a whole extra week to get this episode to you. You'll be able to see how the civilians and soldiers thanked our heroes next time. Thank you so much for watching. I've been blown away by the support and the encouragement for this series so far, so I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you guys for your energy. This is a really great system, and me and the guys are having a great time playing it. If you liked the video, then, leave a like and subscribe if you want. That is it for today, though. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.